Hello. Today I'm going to show you a few examples on rearranging formula and then substituting values to find a particular value using a formula. Okay, so first bit I want to do is make x the subject in these formulas. So essentially what I need to do is I need to undo what's being done to x to get x back to itself. So I need to do the inverse of everything, but I need to do it to both sides of my equal sign. Okay, so on the right hand side with my x, I've got 3 times m times x. So to undo this, I need to divide both sides by 3m. Okay, and if I write this as sort of an algebraic way, we don't use the divide sign. We use a fraction sign, so it's y over 3m is equal to x, and that is making x the subject. Okay, let's look at the second example. I've got on the right hand side 3 times x divided by w. So I need to undo the divide by w by timesing by w, and I do that on both sides. So I get yw equals 3x, and then I need to undo the times by 3 by dividing by 3. Okay, so I do that to both sides. Yw divided by 3 equals x, and there I've made x the subject. So the third example, I've got, let's actually read it through. I've got 4 times x divided by w, then I add 3. So if I were going to work in reverse, then I would get rid of the minus, I would minus 3 first, because it was the last thing to be done. So I get y plus 3, minus 3 is equal to 4x divided by w. Now I undo the next step. So on the right hand side I've got 4 times x divided by w, so undo that. That means I need 2 times by w. So I get w lots of y minus 3 equals 4x. And then I need to undo the times by 4 by dividing by 4. Okay, so we get w lots of y minus 3 divided by 4 equals x. And there I have made x the subject. Remember, it's one step at a time. Don't try and do it all in one go. Don't try and rush it. So the last example of rearranging and making x the subject, or making something the subject, here I've got a squared. So let's think about what happens to x first. Okay, so I've got x squared times by 7 divided by p. So I need to undo that in reverse. So the inverse of divide is times, so we times by p first. So I get yp equals 7x squared. Then what I've got with x is I've got x squared times by 7. So I need to undo the times by 7 by dividing by 7. So I get yp divided by 7 equals x squared. Now, I don't want x squared, I want x. Okay, I want to make x the subject. So I need to undo the x squared by square rooting everything on both sides. So I get left with square root x squared. So I get left with x, but then I must square root the whole of the left hand side. So it's a big square root, and then yp over 7. Make sure if you have to use a calculator, you have to do any rearranging, make sure when you do your square root, you don't just square root the numerator at the top of the fraction, you actually square root the whole thing. Okay, so you could press the square root button and then use a fraction button to go under here. Right? Okay, so hopefully that will help you with some questions on rearranging and making something the subject of the formula. So here I'm going to look at a little bit of substitution. So I want to find the value of q in my formula when r equals 1 and p equals 9. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to replace the letters with their corresponding values. So I've got q is equal to, and this is 5 times r squared, so that's 5 times 1 squared. Make sure you write this out fully before you do any calculations. Alright? And then it's 1/3 minus 1/3 times by 9. So make sure you write this line out. So the only thing you should be replacing is anything that the numbers should be in. So q is equal to 1 squared is 1, 5 times 1 is 5, 1/3 times 9, so that's basically asking for 1/3 of 9, so that's 3. So q equals 2. Okay, find p when q equals -4 and r equals -7. Now p is over here, okay? So I could be substituting in values. I could substitute in the q and then substitute in the r, but I'm going to rearrange it first, okay? So what I'm going to do is I want to make this a plus 1/3 p, so I'm going to add this to both sides. So I get q plus 1/3 p equals 5r squared. Okay, remember it's p I want to be made the subject. So now I'm going to take away q from both sides. 1/3 p equals 5r squared minus q. And then the last step to get p on its own, because then I can substitute in the r value and the q value, the last step is to times by 3. So when I'm doing 1/3 of something, we times by the inverse, which is 3. So p equals 15r squared minus 3q. So now we just need to work this out, okay? So if we've got the r value value being -7, then we get p equals 15 times -7 squared minus 3 times -4. Okay, I've put that in brackets because I don't want to mess around with the minuses until afterwards. So let's work out what we've got. -7 squared, well that's 49, so that's 15 times 49. 3 times -4 is -12. Minus -12 is +12. So I just need to work out what 15 times 49 is. Well, 10 times 49 is 490. So 5 times 49 will be half of this, which is 245. Add the two together, 735. Plus the 12, we get 747. Okay. So hopefully this helps you out with a few questions I've set you. So crack on. All right. Hope you're staying well, and I look forward to seeing you when we get back to school.